righty, good evening and welcome to the CREEDCAST. We are recording this Thursday, 30th of April. It's just at 8:30 p.m. now. Of course, this will be getting into your ear holes on Showdown morning. It is a short turnaround between now and the game that we are about to preview in our SQUADS show. By this time tomorrow evening, it'll be well into the game and we'll all be on the edge of our seats, hopefully. Although I'd love to be just settled back into my seat watching a surprise demolition, but I somehow don't think that's going to happen as much as I'd love it. Yeah, Showdown week. It's always a huge week for us. It's a weird energy for me. Good evening, Jamie. How is your energy? It's even weirder being that we're in this weird position of like, maybe.
Could we? Hello to you and everyone else. Yeah. I think there's been a lot of discussion this week regarding if you asked anyone 3 weeks ago what they thought the outcome of this game would be is completely different to what people are thinking right now. You've got one team who were the minor premiers last year who are coming in to this game with pretty ordinary form, and we've got another team who have started the season shaky, no one expected a lot from, but have all of a sudden found themselves in some pretty decent form and taken a pretty decent scalp. So all in all, now us Port Adelaide supporters are a lot more nervous than we probably would have been if the scenario played out like everyone thought it was going to a month ago.
Yeah, that's what I mean. The energy is weird because you've got hope.
Because now there's an expectation to play well.
And I think the expectation is still, look, we're underdogs, but we expect our team to conduct themselves in a way that gives them every opportunity to win if they can kind of put together the mostly four-quarter performance that they've done for the last 2 weeks. And even, part of the St Kilda game a lot of the St Kilda game was pretty good. So you could say we've played, 10 pretty good quarters out of the last 3 weeks. And it's been increasing results as we've gone on, obviously, with the impressive result and win we had last weekend over Geelong. So it's like it's building, and it's building at the perfect time, but it also does give you 3 weeks ago, I was like, fucking get the Showdown over and done with, get that loss over and done with. It's away Showdown anyway. I'm not going to be there. Like, let's just get past that one, so I can get past that week of banter and all that bullshit that goes with it. But now it's like, there's some hope here. And before we get into previewing the match itself, we'll obviously just talk about the ins and outs. And we go in, as we more or less expected the other night, unchanged for the. It is a change on the team sheet. We'll acknowledge that in a moment. But technically, based on the team that we've seen the past 3 weeks, this is unchanged. We were unchanged going into last week, obviously, against Geelong from the team that almost beat Hawthorn. We got the late out with Todd Marshall going out with gastro, and Jack Watkins came in. That was late last week. Only an hour or so before the game was when we saw that news against Geelong. And of course, this week, Todd Marshall comes back in and Jack Watkins is omitted, but that is basically the lineup that we've seen for the past 3 weeks now. So apart from late changes, of course, and Jack Watkins did play last week, it is an unchanged lineup from the intentions of the last couple of weeks, which is something we haven't seen for a while in Port Adelaide.
No, absolutely. And it does kind of revolve around the fact that the first choice players that are on the sidelines are just too far away, so they're not even in consideration. Yeah. The team just overall playing pretty good football for most of the last 3 games. It's
and remaining injury-free for 3 weeks, which is insane.
Touching all the wood. Don't mess with the juju. But it's refreshing to bring that word back up again from the review show. So, but continuity is good. Continuity is good. Clearly, continuity is good because we've been playing better as a unit now that we've had a bit of continuity, regardless of the fact that we're missing some first choice players. Everyone who has come in to do a role over the last 2 weeks in particular has done exactly that, and it's netted some real positives for us. So, and that's where the confidence comes from coming into this game. It may be a showdown, but we've shown now in several weeks that if we put our heads down, it doesn't really matter who the opponent is. We've got some strategy and some structure to nullify strengths of the opposition while franking our strengths ourselves.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and speaking of the opposition, the Crows are ringing some changes for different reasons. They have Jake Saligo coming in. Dan Curtin comes in for his first game of the year, so that's a big in for them. Jake Saligo is a big in as well if he's in form, but what kind of Jake Saligo we're going to see, that remains to be seen. Alex Neil-Bullen in as well, and James Borlays. The outs, 3 omitted, and 1, of course, personal reasons for Jordan Dawson. We all know what's going on there, and as much as like on the football side of things, if Jordan Dawson was out for any reason, injury or whatever, you'd just be like, geez, that's a relief. But I'm genuinely, just as a human being first, saddened that Jordan Dawson has to, as the captain of the club, as much as we, hate the Crows and all that in footballing terms, Jordan Dawson's the captain of that club, and I'd never want to see the captain of the Adelaide Crows and someone that does a pretty good job of being a good person like Jordan Dawson is missed for the reasons that he is. So again, we kind of talked about it a few weeks ago, and we don't need to go into it now, but we all know what's going on there, and we just thoughts with Jordan Dawson and his family as he continues, just battling what they are and the grief and everything they're going through in this current time, because we know that the kind of character he is, he absolutely would want to be out there if he could. And he tried going against Brisbane last week, and with the funeral and everything this week, he just can't go. So, thoughts with him, and I'd much rather him not going through this and be on the field to face us, and then we can deal with him on field. But no thoughts with him. But he's out, and Charlie Edwards, Finbar Maley, and Nick Murray all omitted. I did see that Nick Murray was training in the forward line this week, so I just assumed they were throwing him forward because Fogarty obviously hasn't made his way back, which is a relief for us. But yeah, I just thought Nick Murray was going to be going forward. But that's the brief stuff I see about the Crows, and don't really follow too much more. But there is some big ins for them, Jamie. Obviously, Fogarty not making it back, but a player that is of both the size and stature and talent of Dan Curtin, maybe with a little bit of rust on him, but he's regardless. If it's Dan Curtin at 80% of his abilities, he's still going to be a very, very good in for the Crows.
Well, this is the thing, is that the names on the paper look good on their side of the fence. It's just, Dan Curtin, like you said, how much rust, how much that affects him, because he has had a lengthy time out of the game with his injury, and he has only played the one SANFL game, if I remember correctly. Jake Saligo had a poor preseason due to the heart murmur, and that seemed to really set him back, and he hasn't really done a whole heck of a lot, except for his last SANFL game where he tore it up. And Neil-Bullen, I think he was managed a little bit. I think he had a niggle, if I remember correctly, and that's kind of contributed to him having to come back up, steadily. So, yeah, and then they come into a team where, you've got all Australian in Thilthorpe, and you've got the players around that. Like I said, looking good on paper. They're just in a funk at the moment. So it's hard to really make ends meet as to what to expect from the Adelaide Crows, which is also a little bit scary as well. For us, because I feel like, we are a young side, and we are younger and less experienced marginally than the Crows in terms of the listed teams. And so, there is still that possibility that we show some sort of inconsistency. I desperately hope it's not this week, if that's to come. But there is that chance there. But I feel like we, as fans of the Port Adelaide Football Club, have built up a bit of trust over the last few weeks just through our performance, and confidence that when our top end is playing the way they are, they're kind of bringing everyone else along for them. And I've used the term 23-man unit a lot over the last 3 weeks, but it's just what it is. Like we literally went through the whole list of the whole team in the Geelong review, as in some capacity. We mentioned every single player, which we typically try not to do because
Yeah.
if we did that last year or the year before, we would have done a 3 or 4 hour pod. But yeah, it just goes to show the evenness in which we're playing. The guns are playing well, the role players are playing roles, and the younger players are taking steps or have taken steps forward. Progress isn't linear, as we know. And these are just caveats that I'm telling myself just to hopefully dampen a blow. But the fact of the matter is, my point is that this team has built a rep over the last 3 weeks that we have gotten a bit used to now that we've beaten Geelong on the weekend, and I hope that continues. The Crows, even their own fans don't know what to expect. The level, more level headed ones, I would imagine. There's obviously that contingent that you mentioned in the review that are all spiraling.
Nick's out.
But I guess, yeah. And I was never Nick's in, so I've seen as well. But yeah, I guess it just goes back to what we were speaking of in our first month of football, and that's just to respect the opposition as they come and don't underestimate them, because you just feel that while the Adelaide Football Club aren't playing very well at the moment and they're kind of going through their own struggles, game plan changes themselves, which doesn't seem to be working. They did finish as minor premier last year, and in terms of home and away, and in terms of the last showdown, they played pretty bloody well. So that's what they're capable of, and that's what we need to be ready for.
Yeah. I was just looking at previous 10 games as well because I was looking at what the record for us, and like they've won 5 out of the last 6, and obviously that last game was a bit of a stinger with how heavily they beat us, and their records kind of set in that one, and they thoroughly deserved it. They were playing good footy, and we were we'll kind of meet each other at opposite ends of the slope of a mountain. I guess a good starting point for just looking at this matchup is, I mean, the midfield is always going to be a starting point in any discussion, but we've obviously seen a massive uptick in production with the mix getting to where we want the mix to be. The mixologist, the alchemist that is Josh Carr, finally getting things to more or less where he wants it to be with his assistant coach and Stuart Dew, and Jason Horne-Francis finally getting fit and getting that time in the middle has opened up a lot of opportunity in that midfield. Obviously, the 1-2 punch that him and Zach Butters provide in their skills and the way they're able to work off each other, and then you've obviously got some capable workhorses alongside them in the stoppage and extraction game, and the likes of Willem Drew and Ollie Wines and et cetera, all that go through there with them. We also have obviously the ruck battery that we've really, really been enjoying in Dante Vicentini and Jordan Sweet, both working together very, very well over the last couple of weeks. And we're coming up against a side that has no Riley O'Brien in it, which, maybe his disposal we could have welcomed, but he has been Riley O'Brien in the past has been a bit of a showdown tormentor for us. So we come up against the somewhat promising and has been, had some good moments this year, Lachlan McAndrew, but I think they call him Stretch. But as they've kind of gone into the season a bit, you can tell some of his limitations are probably being found out as well. And I think it's a real good opportunity, hopefully, and not disrespecting the opposition in any way, but I just think with them going with the one, and obviously I assume Thilthorpe's been taking some chop outs and
Toby Murray on the bench is also their backup.
Right.
Yeah. So inexperienced, went from that point of view, an inexperienced duo.
Yeah. So an inexperienced duo, and we've had, obviously the first week of the ruck battery that we've deployed against Hawthorn was probably the best matchup one of the best matchups you're going to have to see. And you might say they lost the hit out battle, obviously, but they did battle well and allow us to actually do pretty well in the clearance and stoppage game regardless, and just battle well. And I just think this is a golden opportunity for them to once again put that to work and kind of have, maybe it won't be as dominant as it was against Geelong last week, but that we should be looking to win that matchup and then hopefully frank that into some work for the clearance kings in Horne-Francis and Butters or Drew. Drew's been dominating at clearance. Drew's had 17 clearances the last couple of weeks. Like we've got some extractors and some kings in there this week.
Well, that's it. Like, I think a fair portion of the discussion is Port's midfield going great guns in various to various degrees, and Adelaide's midfield off the back of season 2025 leaving a lot to be desired. I find it funny that the Adelaide Crows media manager has listed Ben Keys as a centre. Whether that's a prediction or anything, as we know, yeah, they usually just get a team list and play around with it to put it on, to submit it to the AFL and put it on social media. But yeah, because it feels like they're humming, like our midfield's humming now, and they've finally learnt how to defend as a unit, it would seem. Yeah. But in terms of attack, I want to talk about that first. It is a huge game for Jordan Sweet in particular, but the duo of Sweet and Vicentini, or Vincentini, because it may just be another moment where Jordan Sweet can expose an inexperienced ruckman. McAndrew has started the season quite well and has probably performed higher than expectation in that corner of the universe. He was on Sydney's list for a period of time, so he's been around a good club setup in that regard too. So he hasn't just been picked from obscurity, but he is. And Matthew Nix made a point of mentioning it in the press conference today, which I don't know if it's a little get out of jail free card, but yeah, mentioned his inexperience and whatnot. So as we've seen Jordan Sweet do on several occasions now, particularly on Saturday against Mitch Edwards, smelling a little bit of blood in the water and really trying to gain and establish ascendancy against these lesser experienced ruckmen. McAndrew is the reason why McAndrew has been picked ahead of Rob is predominantly for the CBA. So that's where potentially you could see a Dante getting first ruck. I mean, from the get-go is what I'm saying. Just to, Sweet is the first ruck, in my opinion, and it has been the whole way through. But a bit horses for courses. We lost those 2 or 3 centre clearances early against Geelong, and then they made that switch. We made that switch a bit too late against Hawthorn. So in terms of a CBA and the fact that McAndrew's biggest weapon is his ability to jump at the ball, perhaps we see a Dante first. But by and large, it's a huge game for Jordan Sweet at being the number 1 ruck, because for the whole length of the game, he needs to assert his dominance on that particular facet of the game. Hopefully buying a take it out the ruck goal as well when there's a forward stoppage.
Yeah. He seems to be wanting to kind of establish dominance both physically and just he's got a bit of like that. I don't know if, again, we talked about it at the start of the year when he was obviously dropped for the first game and with like it's something to prove since, but then they're both playing together and playing well together. But yeah, I just, after the last couple of weeks, it's just a matchup that I look at as like if we're going to continue the progression we are and playing, and I genuinely think the way forward for the foreseeable future with the way we're playing is to play the two of them. So they want to take the opportunity in a big game as well. It's a big game for both of them to kind of, because rivalry games come with that extra. If you can have a good game in a game like this, it goes a long way in your kind of your aura, I guess. So I'm really excited.
It's good for your rep
for both of them. Yeah, absolutely. Yeah, we again, Riley O'Brien's a player that has been much maligned by Crows fans, but I think of him as a bit of a tormentor in showdowns as well. Like he's had some good games against us. So,
I think he's a showdown medalist, if I remember correctly.
Pretty sure he is. Fucking Crows ruckman and showdown medals is just annoying.
yeah, good point.
And then, hopefully like, the midfield around that. I mean, it's going to be a really interesting question as to how the Crows, what their mix ends up like on the day. The Richelli run through there a bit this year. He's having a reasonable year and it seems to have matured as a player and what he can do. So that's probably a plus point for them. But again, does he have the tank and the experience to go into that group? Our group seems suddenly quite settled into what they're doing now. Isaac Rankin's had obviously a slow start to the year, and a lot of the reasons and whatnot about that as to why that is have been spoken about at length. But just for like the basic facts of it is, he's not playing the kind of football we thought he was. Like, well, the kind of football he was last year up until the point of suspension, and hasn't found that form. They haven't been giving him a whole lot of CBA appearances. So what they're going to do with him, I feel like at some point Rankin's just going to flick the switch, and I hope it's not this weekend. So again, it's no disrespect, but you just got to go with what you've seen. But that's probably the unknown, is like, what kind of Richelli game do we get? Rankin, does he flick the switch this week? Has he found that way around? Or, and then obviously last year we threw a tag at in the successful showdown that we had, well, almost successful showdown we threw the kind of a somewhat attacking tag at Jordan Dawson, with Miles Bergman having a big game himself, despite being able to hold Dawson as well. I think he had 20 odd disposals himself, so he had a reasonable game. We don't have that kind of, I don't know, and we haven't really been doing that. I think the one time we really tried a really obvious tag, didn't work on Nasir, and it seems to be more or less go to work ourselves. And and last week was just negate the tag by being so like negate the tag against us. And what will the Crows try to tag Butters? Because he's the one you do tag, but then we saw last week the evidence of one of the best tagging sides in the competition weren't able to do much with that, because we had the mix right to be able to, and the experience to be able to negate a tag. So yeah, the midfield matchup you look at the moment and actually go, that's a win for Port Adelaide, just based on what we've seen. Again, Crows could throw a mix at us we're not expecting. They could just come to play and lock in for the day, and where that it's going to be that who's 5% on, who's 5% off. That will be the difference. But I think just going in on paper, the midfield is a Port Adelaide win.
Yes, I agree. And it was interesting listening to SENSA, because Mark Bickley mentioned that if Zach Butters and Jason Horne-Francis play good games, like if they have great games, then Port Adelaide will win. And he's basically listing off like Berry to tag Butters, and Max Michaelaney or Peatling to tag Jason Horne-Francis, or vice versa, and then maybe Michaelaney could tag Jason Horne-Francis if he goes forward, and potentially another tag. And it just sounded so defensive. But also, I think last week proved that perhaps Zach Butters in particular has learnt a thing or two about how to beat a tag. And like you mentioned, Oisin Mullen was seen as probably one of the premier taggers in the competition, but we used that plan against them in a way of keeping Zach Butters away from the stoppage or defensive side to then get some of the handball receives and things like that. And it's interesting. You talk about mixes, and we've obviously had our comments about our midfield mix, and it kind of being all over the place and now settling down. And the Crows are having their own mix dilemma, loudly spoken by the fans.
Well, did you see the chat a couple of weeks ago when Edwards debuted, and they were like, and he impressed everyone? It's like, how do you drop this kid? Like, what is it? And when Dawson comes back, do you throw Dawson the halfback and keep Edwards in? And then, as we said, a week is a long time in football. 2 weeks is a millennia, and Edwards has been dropped. So their mix clearly, like, they don't know, like they're not sure what their mix is at the moment, and that's what I think gives us the plus point. Sorry to interject there. I just thought it was kind of.
Yeah.
Those that don't keep as much of an eye on what Adelaide's doing, it was genuinely, I keep an eye on it via social media and what people are saying. And Edwards was getting lauded, and for good reason. He had a good game, and people were like, "Oh, you can't drop a kid playing this well." And 2 weeks later, he's dropped, because that's what happens with inexperienced youth. You do just sometimes have to drop them after a good start.
Yeah, and he did look like a bit of a deer in headlights against Brisbane, which he's not the only person in the league that would probably have that appearance. But
we have had that look with us at times against Brisbane.
Particularly, a second gamer or however many games he had played. But look, dropped him. They seem to be sticking. I mean, Berry and Peatling are named as their followers, and Saligo's on the bench. Saligo is also a Showdown medalist. like I said, the media manager for AFC has put Keys as center, so that's weird.
He's who Kim Dillon
It's
all
just
week has
really
been calling to drop as well. So they're kind of the media turmoil about who the Crow should pick. I think Ben Keys is a kind of player, just from the outside, Ben Keys is a kind of player that if you want to give him a chance to get back into form, you get him playing a showdown. Like, I hope he doesn't play himself into form in this game, but Ben Keys is the kind of
Yeah, I
player
get
that
what you're
plays.
saying.
You know, yeah, if I'm the Crow, I would have been more relieved seeing Ben Keys drop this week than I am seeing him play. I know Crows Kim Dillon was saying drop Ben Keys, but for me, you pick a guy like that for a showdown and hope and give him the opportunity to find form in a game like this. I'm speaking very nicely about the Crows right now. I don't feel good about it, but I'm trying to be objective.
It's the safeguards. It's the safeguarding mechanisms.
Yeah.
But I mean, yeah, that's a team that is out, wayward form, and yeah, they haven't. I mean, they won against Collingwood at the MCG early doors, but they've been wavering ever since. So, but the fact of the matter is their midfield is kind of one paced, and not in the kind of good direction. Saligo can change that, but who knows what kind of Jake Saligo will come out some Friday night tonight when people are listening to this or watching this, because he's one that adds a bit of dynamism. And then there is the Rochelle and Rankin, but I did find it interesting. Rochelle clearly didn't have a good game against Brisbane, and he's the type of player that it really shows, and he just looked fucking cooked on the weekend. He's not good at hiding that type of stuff. So again, I hope we can get the same kind of, moody face and shaking of his head that we got.
And they're going to need someone in there to lift. Jordan Dawson, outside of everything going on, even last week, I think Dawson picked up 28 disposals. Like, he was still probably their best.
He had a great game.
And he's just there's something of a metronomic quality to him that he can keep playing good footy and try to lift the side. Watching some of their games this year, he's been the one that's kind of had moments where he's flown back on the wing or taken an intercept mark and generated some bounce and been part of some of those quick comebacks they've had where they've either won the game or almost won the game. I think the one against Freo, he had some heroic moments as well. So they're kind of missing that. I mean, him missing is huge for them, just as far as if they do struggle at times, their ability to turn the tide without him is that much more difficult, because he can drop back behind the ball and take those marks and launch the rebound, or he can get involved either upfield and unfortunately has a knack for scoring some good goals in showdowns as well. So, there's a lot of stuff that, as a Port fan, taking away the reasons he's missing, that I'm glad to not see him on the team sheet, because he just as far as what he can do on game day, particularly for a side that's a bit up and down like they are, where he can slot in and have an impact. And so they're going to need someone to lift. And then you look at, any more midfield thoughts we can do, but we can bounce forward to a little bit of the forward line as well. They're missing another guy that's been a bit of a tormentor at times in showdowns in Darcy Fogarty. So still very, very talented up forward. And we must say that, any forward line that's got Riley Thilthorpe, and regardless of his age, Taylor Walker playing some reasonable footy still, or some of his best footy in the last few years. A spine of those two, very formidable. And obviously Riccelli and Rankin. Rankin doesn't have to. Rankin's had some special goals this year, despite the fact he's not getting his hand on it as much. And then, whatever Dan Curtin ends up being, it's a very talented forward line, and presents to us some of the interesting matchup issues and some of those other things that a similar, kind of mix that Hawthorn had a couple of weeks ago. A couple of tools that we really have to key in on, and some really, really talented wizardry around the ball drop as well.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, and I mean, even Geelong, when we were previewing them, having Neil and Cameron, and then their fleet-footed smalls around those two. I mean, and Patrick Dangerfield, but yeah, so it's not too dissimilar to that. And we clearly showed that while we were shorter than Geelong, and on average across the board by a fair margin, when you consider about 10 centimetres, that's what, again, fills you with hope. We've packed our defensive unit with experience, and I think, early days they've wanted to shore that up. Again, Darcy Byrne-Jones is listed on a full forward line by our media manager. But you dare say that he'll still contribute down back. So with the experience of DBJ, Kane Farrell, Aaliyah, Todd Marshall experienced in an AFL sense, and his last game was sensational against Hawthorn. Bergman and Jones, who have come into their own in the context of the season. Lockie Jones just running his fingers down the seam, presenting the seam perfectly in his spell. And Jace Burgoyne, a timely return to some really good form against Geelong on the weekend. His task is to now make that consistent, like all of these other members of our defensive unit have made. And then you've got Logan Evans and Josh Lyle on the bench who have taken steps forward as they've progressed through their seasons thus far. So the defence for mine is quite a solid unit, typified by our performance against Geelong, but also backed up by the pressure up the field, which we saw in the structure at cutting off avenues. Adelaide, I think, last year they were one of, if not the best teams to score from turnover, but they were also one of the best teams to score from defensive 50 to forward 50 transition. And this year, it's something that they're really struggling to do, is that transition game. So again, not to, get too ahead of yourself, but we absolutely shut off Geelong's exits at every turn. And that came down to pressure, and it all came down to positioning. So yeah, if Adelaide aren't winning it in the centre this year, they're really finding it hard to break through team zones. So on top of our defensive unit now looking quite solid in terms of experience, and then like you said, Darcy Fogarty not being that three-headed monster, although they've got, Dan Curtin, who is quite tall. And they did put Toby Murray, they did rotate him as a resting forward against Brisbane, but again, like, he's a young player, inexperienced player. They got smashed by 50 points. Like, there wasn't much to write home about. But I take a lot of confidence from Saturday's game against Geelong in regards to what we can do here. Yes, Phil Thorpe might be a man mountain, but so is Shannon Neal. Maybe at two different stages of their careers, but just looking at it in a binary way, Taylor Walker is quite smart, and his footy IQ is, in terms of IQ, that's keeping him up, because when it comes to non-footy IQ, that leaves a lot to be desired. But while he's on the field, you got to respect the player. He had a shocker against Brisbane. So coming into a showdown, he'll want to atone for that. I think we'll keep it true tool on tool with Aaliyah and Todd keeping an eye on Thilthorpe and Walker. Because I feel like that gives the rest of our defence some freedom. A lot of chat about Aaliyah wanting to be the loose. Again, I've never bought into him being that one-dimensional, particularly when we've got Bergman, Lockie Jones, and even Logan Evans is quite formidable with his intercept, and Josh Lye. Experience granted, and again, the form line may waver, but I feel like our mediums are taking more responsibility for that intercept marking, on top of Marshall and Aaliyah obviously being their strong suit as well, as we saw in the game against Hawthorn.
Yeah. And look, if we can have the similar, because what we did really well against Geelong was cut off the line of attack to not allow easy forward entry for Geelong, and they kind of just had to really kind of scrap for their goals,
kick and hope.
And obviously the opportunity. Yeah. And so that aided the likes of Lockie Jones and co to go to work as far as getting forward of the
they
ball.
Could just support each other.
Yeah. There was, and you just see that's how, defenses don't want to be under siege all the time and have heroic efforts. They actually want to be protected a little bit upfield and allow themselves to go to work in a quiet way. Yeah, look, Todd Marshall had a great first half against Hawthorn, and the stats look good, and Elias had some incredibly heroic moments, but by and large, it's kind of like, goalkeepers in soccer. They're happy if they're not seen most of the game, because that means the rest of the team's playing well. And so if we can help the defense, and allow them to just and allow them to have a bit of control of their defensive 50 by making sure there's not too much easy entry coming in from the Crows. And yeah, your
For
points
sure.
about how they're transitioning the ball is very, very good. We have a better defensive to forward 50 percentage this year so far. I mean, a lot of the stats so far for us are in favor of us versus what the Crows have been doing this year. Points from turnover, we're scoring more. They've got a marginally better points from stoppage differential, but we've gotten better at that recently as well. And partly just because we're and their time in forward half, we're far better than the Crows this year. Time in possession, far better. Total points given up by defense is very, very. The Crows are giving up 90 points a game. We're giving up 79.7 points from turnover. We're only giving up 42. They're giving up 55. So there is some like areas that are kind of flipped from what we saw last year, which goes and earlier in the year I would have said, look, we're only playing some shit teams, but we've played some pretty good teams the past couple of weeks to help that statistical measure look a little bit better. Yes, it's still not going to, not going to get a full idea until a few more weeks down the track, and that may mean nothing for this game. But there's just some markers that we're looking good in versus what the Crows are struggling in as well. And we were able to take advantage of Geelong turnover and they're in a lot of areas. So there's a lot of areas to be nervously excited about going into the game tomorrow night because as you said earlier, the Crows midfield is a little bit one paced and they haven't been moving the ball well, and we've been moving the ball well against some pretty good teams over the past couple of weeks. So, there's some things to be excited about and reasons to look and say, look, this, we have a real shot here. Before we get to talking about our forward line, just a note as I'm looking at this stats page anyway, and again, and not sponsored or anything at all. I just like the way the stats are shown and often go there for a bit of it. I'm looking at Wheelo ratings and the last couple of weeks, the prediction of Wheelo ratings, their analytics has had, I think Hawthorn, it was a 84% chance that Hawthorn would win by 35 points. Obviously, we brought that right back. Last week, I think it was around the 70 percentage-ish chance that Geelong were going to win by 30 points. Obviously, we flipped that all the way around. Hawthorn, we almost did. Geelong, we did. This week, Wheelo Ratings has a 56% chance Adelaide by 5.1 points. So their analytics say that Adelaide are still favoured, but it is far, far shorter odds than the last couple of weeks. We saw what we did against those odds. And, Adelaide are, in a spot of bother. So, there's a lot of things that show that we're still underdogs, but it's a marginal underdog versus, a few weeks ago, it was very, very heavy underdogs. I don't know what the betting lines were saying a few weeks ago, but I'm sure we would have been $4 or $5 and we're into $2.50 or something like that at the moment, I think. So, yeah, again, gamble responsibly, not sponsored at all. It's just a gambling analytics or a prism into seeing how the game's being read by the outside as well. I think the forward line we have to start. Big Mitch Georgiades, the man that causes havoc on the hill. He's playing his 100th game this weekend.
He is.
Or this Friday. A big shout out to him. That's what an occasion for him to play his 100th game for the competitive beast that he is as well.
Gets his name on a locker. And let's keep it that way, Mitch. All right. Huge game for him. And good. Yeah. Good that we've got something to just the storytelling of coaches to kind of lift the spirits of your team. Like it's nice just having that as a little element to spur us on. I mean, I'm sure Josh Carr and the rest of the coaching group are kind of well into their work in that regard over the last 2 to 3 weeks. But yeah, just nice to have that on this occasion. And he'll, much like he did last week, he'll want to hit the ground running and get shots on goal. It's an interesting situation. I'm just trying to think of last year's forward line setup, particularly in the first showdown. I can't quite remember it, but because I think, largely, I think that's kind of what we have to key in on is last year's first showdown when we were competitive, and that was largely built off of clearance dominance. We were just turning
in that first showdown.
That's right. Yeah, he had like, was it 5 shots on goal or something like that? Yeah, three goals. Yeah. So yeah, we've got Whitlock. They are you looking it up?
I am. You can keep talking. I was just like,
I'm not 100% sure, but But they would have had Nick Murray and Mark Keane. But yeah, this year they've got Butts and Borlays, who they've brought back in, who should be wearing a port jumper, of course, as their tools. So it is a vastly different situation. Obviously, we've got a young Jack Whitlock, who has had a quiet, or he had a quiet game against Long. I was going to say he had a quiet couple of weeks, but he actually kicked a couple of goals against Hawthorn. So that is he had a quiet game against St Kilda, I think.
Yeah.
Obviously in the passing showers of the night. But yeah, we made the point of saying he had shots on goal against Geelong. He just was kicking it up a chimney. So hopefully, yeah, once he gets his hands on the ball inside 50, he's actually kicking it with a bit more penetration at goal.
Yeah. Just for Whitlock, like he has a quiet game, but he still gets 8 disposals, takes a couple of marks. Like his, we've seen as a point of comparison. By the way, Ollie Lord was listed at full forward in that game last year, and obviously Georgiades played, and Finlayson was in the side as well. So a very, very different forward line to what we're playing with this year. Obviously, Whitlock didn't even make his debut for another couple of months last year. Whitlock, his quiet game, like Ollie Lord, often if he has a quiet game in those periods where he's quite maligned, it was like he wasn't even getting a hand on the ball. Like he wasn't taking the marks, he was dropping marks. He was maybe getting 3 or 4 disposals. Whitlock has a quiet game. He has 8 disposals, gets a couple of shots on goal, just doesn't convert in this one. But
that's right.
His bottom is higher than already, and so yeah, that's a positive again. Just to throw it back to you, but yeah.
Well, I remember discussing about Ollie Lord because I think he came in due to injury or something similar. But we were like, if you got your chance, take it. And then I think he had 1 shot on goal and he missed it. And in the review, we were basically like, you might not have many moments, but you got to take those moments. Yeah. So, and look, with our forward line over the last however many years, I think I made the point maybe last year or the year before, or maybe both years, that Matthew Nicks he would have loved coaching against our team, against Ken Hinkley, because we were a real surge bomb it forward, and the likes of Worrell and Mark Keane and stuff could just come past and intercept it, and it was infuriating. But I feel that that's one key difference to our forward foray strategy this year, and it was typified in that Hawthorn game when it was an arm wrestle, that instead of kicking it long to Barras, Battle, Sicily, we were working our way through other avenues, lowering our eyes to our medium forwards and our small forwards, or the mismatches, instead of just bombing it long to, say, Mitch Georgiades. So that's, again, what fills me with confidence coming up against the Crows, as long as we are obviously sticking to the game plan that we've put on display the last 2 or 3 weeks. Because, yeah, Josh Worrell, formidable, pretty rough not to make All-Australian last year, but had his decent battles with Charlie Dixon back in the day, and he's, back in vogue with the injuries, injury to Keane and the, I guess, down form of Nick Murray. Sorry, my next point was going to be, obviously, Corey Durden has been tasked with a defensive forward task, for want of a better word, to repeat myself, which he's done obviously fantastically well, because he's still hitting the scoreboard. And while Rory Laird historically is one to keep an eye on, I feel like the general consensus is from Crow's side of the planet and feedback that Malera is in decent form and really performing quite well as a rebounding halfback. So I dare say yes,
he's been one of my favourites to watch. Just when I'm watching as a neutral, obviously I'm always rooting against the Crows if I'm ever watching a Crows game. But just objectively, when I watch what Wayne Miller is doing, he's playing very, very good football. And is
with the last name Miller, surely he's got some Port Adelaide ties somewhere. So there's
yeah.
surely a caveat there. But yeah, he has been in good form. So
he can pull a Bergman and kick it the opposite way for us this year.
yeah, oh no, I'd forgotten about that. I was there. It was cold, and I wanted to go home. But yeah, obviously, if Durden's been tasked with one of their damaging rebounders, then that seems like the obvious matchup to me. So you dare say, yeah, DBJ from this team list that we're looking at would be spending his time in defense, like he's become more accustomed to over the last month, and Durden will have the job on Millerer, because he had the job on Sicily against Hawthorn, who's more of like the intercept marker, but good by foot as well, typically. But I don't think that they would put him on Worrell. Just vibes. So obviously we've got whatever ruckman to crash packs as well. Sweet having 3 shots on goal. Visentini actually presenting a few times, and like we said, just didn't clunk it. So, if he gets the grippo on, it's going to be perfect weather for football. So hopefully he can take a few marks if we're hitting up his leads and getting it in his area when necessary.
Yeah, I told you, and I think I might have mentioned on the pod already in the last week or so, but so sorry if I'm repeating myself, but when I was down at the open training a week and a half ago, I messaged you from the training as I was watching it, it's saying Vicentini's doing a lot of forward 50 work, so it's clear that they want, and, obviously Sweet does a bit as well, but like they really were hitting up.
Yeah, they have to
Vicentini
go somewhere.
Yeah, there was a lot of the forward 50 entry drills. There was like 3 in a row that there was Vicentini lining up for set shots after being hit pretty well. And he was clunking the marks at training pretty well. Obviously, training's a completely different beast than in-game competition. But yeah, if he can clunk a few, and they both, if Sweet and Vicentini are having a shot or 2 each in the game, that's probably meaning that others are getting their opportunities as well. Because they obviously, Vicentini didn't clunk the marks, but Sweet got a couple of shots last game. If we can get a shot or 2 per ruckman, and frank that out. So obviously, and just a note to the inside 50, as you were talking about, just the difference in the way we're playing this year versus how we've played against the Crows and other teams in the previous years. We've taken 29 marks inside 50 in the last 2 weeks against Hawthorn and Geelong, against some very, very good defense. We've taken 29 marks inside 50. I don't know if we've took 29 marks inside 50 against any pair of teams in a 2-week period last year I haven't looked at the stats, and I'm not going to right now on the podcast, but just looking at particularly the opposition we've played in the last couple of weeks, that's a very, very good metric to look at as to how we're changing. We've changed how we're looking for targets inside 50, and the forwards are responding. Mitch is finding good leading patterns. Obviously, having a like Whitlock, just his ability to bring down a mark in a lot of different situations is a lot better than Ollie Lord has shown in previous years, and because they work in tandem very well together, and then the guys, and that's working, and that is obviously spreading out to the likes of Corey Durden's taking us. I put the stat up this week. I think is over 4 marks a game. So it's being helped by the others out there, and obviously Jason Horne-Francis spot forward and takes a mark or 2 inside 50 a game. So yeah, the way we're playing is going to be a new. The Crows haven't seen the way we're playing, and obviously they're going to have gone through the tape, and it won't be a surprise to them. But it is going to be like, who knows what they by the last showdown last year, they probably just went in and went, Ken's not changing anything at this point. There's no Ken shade. It's just it was the last showdown. He's probably just going to throw them. At that point, the team was a little bit cooked, and it was just going to.
Flu was running through our club at that stage too, which didn't get spoken about a lot.
Yeah, it kind of seemed to come out more and more after that week. It was like, and then it seemed to linger for a couple of weeks after that. Lingerer, just lingering.
Malingerer, yeah. Snickle Fritz.
Oh, love that movie. Need a rewatch. Yeah. As we look at the entirety of the possible result as we start to close out here, as we've gone through this effort of the last 45 minutes of previewing the game, I'm feeling more bullish about the result. How are you? Like, I'm still trying to work out where my head and my heart are and if they are the same. How are you feeling, Jamie? What's your prediction? Head, heart, are they the same? What are we feeling?
I feel that if we replicate what we saw in the Anzac round, that we will win. I think we've found a delicate balance across all lines, and a cohesion is a word that I used in our review, whether it be front half pressure back or defensive transition forward. I just feel that all lines are working a lot more in unison now. We have a better understanding of where we want to be and where we want to go to. And just to revert back to the forward line, I think in recent years, the Adelaide Crows have loved how predictable we are. And I feel that now that we've gotten into our work, we're slightly more unpredictable. Even though we have our key figurehead in Mitch Georgiadis, we're using multiple avenues to goal. So, look, my heart is telling me that we'll smash them because they're a bit of a sitting duck at the moment. And we've found a certain vein of form that's quite promising. But my head says that showdowns are never what you expect them to be. And even still, I think our midfield is still in good enough form that will give us the edge. Because I feel like if they're going to waste their time trying to tag, then we've already got one step ahead of them in a midfield sense. So in that regard, I feel like it'll be an arm wrestle, but I feel like we'll get the job done. They'll be buoyed by their home crowd. It'll be interesting to see how they react in such an emotional time for the club. That may spur them on and galvanize them, but it also may negatively impact them as well. And being buoyed by their crowd may lift them. But I feel confident that we can get the job done. Again, if we replicate what we did against Geelong.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, I'm more or less in the same area as you. Actually, it's I think that all things being, I think it is partly, and it has to be said, we're catching them at the right time and where they are in form. And again, Jordan Dawson is a big out for them. That is a player that just can inspire and lead and have some magic moments and all over the field. But they are not to be taken lightly. They do have a lot of players that the reason their form has been down the last, for the most of the season so far is because they've got some star players not playing well yet. And like I said, my big fear is a player like Isaac Rankin's flicking the switch and having 20 plus disposals having an impact in the middle and down forward. Dan Curtin, where he's at, who knows? But by and large, I think regardless of even if both of those kind of players hit decent form, if we play the way we did last week and our midfield can get some control, if we win the clearance battle and win the, win the time and forward half battle, even if it's a marginal win, that'll mean that we're controlling a fair bit of play and that we're probably getting the inside 50 entries we want.
For sure.
And while it'll be a close tussle, I think we can kind of come, it would be nice if we come away with like that 15 to 25 point kind of margin, just pull away.
That would be lovely. I'm taking that.
I'd love to smash him as well, but I just don't think that's going to happen. I think they will play with a bit of emotion on the edge of their sleeves and playing for their captain. And also just playing for that they do get them over the last few years. Nix has gotten them up very, very well for showdowns. That must be said. Whatever issues that Crows fans have with Nix, he's done a very, very good job of coaching them through showdown week and getting them actually a very, very good showdown ledger in the Nix era, particularly in the last few years. So, I mean, you just
trust in Josh Carr.
Absolutely,
that's the element of surprise.
Absolutely, and look, he's coaching with an edge. I think they kind of touched on that. I haven't seen the full press conference between him and Nixie today, but he kind of said that Nixie was kind of alluding to kind of the way that Josh Carr is coaching, and Josh Carr is kind of sitting there quietly, just looking like, you want to get to the Ramsgate already? Like, it just looked like Carr was.
Yeah. I watched it. I watched it earlier, and Josh Carr very tight-lipped and very matter of fact in regards to how we've been and how we want to play and how we approach a game like this. It does again fill me with confidence because I think what everyone on our side of the fence is relishing is just quite a matter of fact sensibility around how we are approaching our football. The lack of emotion all comes down to system, all comes down to what we want to do, each line, how it connects. Control versus chaos. Nixie he did look a little bit uncomfortable. as you would be, but perhaps I've just got teal-coloured glasses on.
Yeah, well, I'm sure. I'm sure he probably still remembers. I'm sure Josh Carr's by either giving him some lip or giving him some I don't know, something on the field back in their playing days because they would have played against each other. So
Yeah. Well, they did.
yeah,
Nixie did say they have worked together as well. It would have been Josh Carr's first instance as an assistant
yeah,
coach under Ken.
true. Yeah. No, it's the way the coaching trees work and those branches shake between each other. So yeah, no, that's yeah, no, I'm just look. I am very buoyed by the fact that this week there's not much noise coming out of Port Adelaide. Look, I didn't mind some of the bravado and stuff, but it clearly didn't work. So there's been a quiet, just let's get into our work. Social media teams posting highlights of Gussie Monfries and all that stuff, like they're doing that, but the team itself is just quietly at work and makes me more probably keen and excited to see how they come out tomorrow because I think they're all quietly just ready to go and the confidence that would have been built and
Oh,
it's a good probably maybe
I
a good point to
fucking
finish
hope
on.
I fucking hope we smash them. But of course, like there's a bear shit in the woods type of thing. But honestly, though, I mean, Adelaide are lower than us on the ladder, and like they haven't been playing good football. But if we can string consecutive wins together, which we obviously haven't done this year,
Mm-hmm.
I mean, if we play in a manner that replicates what we've seen in recent weeks, the possibilities are endless, really. And we're not even talking about trying to tank. We're having different conversations, which personally I'd much prefer to have. But that's, if buts, candy nuts, stars, rainbows, and sunshine, lollipops, and, fanciful shit that I hope for. But we got to get the job done first and
Yeah.
foremost.
Yeah. Yeah, and look, I'll take, if all we get out of this year is some showdown wins, and then, but I do hope for continued wins. I like the winning feeling we got from last week, and I want that to continue. More, please. It's like Klopp's voice ringing in my ear when he hears
More,
the
please.
erotic,
You've got a very erotic voice.
Wow. More, please. Yeah. I wanted to
So
finish on a
niche.
point that I think is important too. Beyond, it has been used as content before on this podcast. I should share it randomly on the story at some point.
Yeah.
A point to finish on as well that kind of is very important, a little bit of showdown history as well. Obviously, Josh Carr, unbeaten record as a player, 10-0 in a showdown. So he's going into his first one as a coach. I'm not going to, that player record will hold forever, but, it'd be fun if it just started continuing as a coach and be like, when is this going to finish? It is also, obviously, Zach Butters as the interim captain at the moment gets to captain his first showdown. So that's an important milestone, I think, to acknowledge as well. And, Butters is, obviously the St. Kilda, all the hoopla about that fucking umpire bullshit aside, he's been doing a very, very good job the last couple of weeks of being the on-field leader and being the leader because Rosie's there.
I want to hear his pre-game rev up. Sorry. I want to hear his pre-game rev up.
Double sidearm cobras, just going fuck these cunts 50 times as they run out onto the and then the little child that's running out as a sponsor, he goes, "Oh hi kid," as he's just been yelling like C bombs. I'd love to see what he kind of gets into because I feel like we all know he's
going to be champing at the bit. He's going to be champing at the bit to take these cunts on.
Yeah. And they want this. They after the showdown history of the last 3-4 years hasn't been great for any of them. So you've got a lot of players out there. Obviously, Durden playing his first one, but you've got players like your Murrays, your McKinleys. McKinley's playing his first one. Ware's playing his first one. Joe Richards hasn't won one. Joe Berry, I don't know if Berry played in either of them last year. I'm trying to think now. Because he might have gotten dropped by the time Murray's might have played one, but there's a lot of these guys are either even if they've played one last, there's a lot of them haven't tasted a showdown win, or they've not, or they're playing their first one. So there's a lot
Go
of guys
well.
there that'll be champing at the bit to get that result under their belts. And and then obviously for the senior heads like your Ollie Wines, your Zach Butters, whoever else it may be, it's just about getting back in the good books of the Showdown history books and continuing a promising run. Really, really excited for it. And again, shout out to Mitch Georgiades playing his 100th game. It's a big occasion for many reasons, but we look forward to hopefully reviewing a Showdown win on Monday. We'll be obviously, this being a Friday night game, we're aiming to record on Monday to get the review out even earlier in the week. We've got a couple of days between the Showdown and a Monday review. So review will record Monday, all going well, and then obviously be out early Tuesday morning for you all to listen to. So I think that's about it from us. I love and hate this week all at once. It's a lot of anxiety and whatnot, but I'm really, really excited to just kick back at home tomorrow and watch the game and hope to cheer the boys to a win. And I'm a lot more excited about it than I thought it was going to be a few weeks ago. So there's opportunity presents here, and very, very excited for it.
I totally agree. Just hope we got our kicking boots on. That's all we need. That's all we need.
Yeah.
Oh no, I'm pumped. Yeah, I want to smash them. I want to taste that sweet, sweet victory. If we keep waffling on, we could go into some really dangerous areas. So I hope everyone enjoys the game.
Now. I should probably just get offline before say something to get us cancelled. All righty, guys. Cheers for listening. We'll catch up with you Monday/Tuesday. I hope that this guy is around again this weekend and has another moment like this.
Right in front of me! Right in front of me!
I can't the fucking bear.
Go, boys. Get the win.